Hi everybody, hi guys. I just want to record this video because I thought, because people were asking me about Belarus, they know that I am from Belarus. I just want to explain certain things that people probably don't understand, and I'm not sure I do understand, but I've got some sort of reality on it because I grew up in Soviet Union. I came to England in 1998, and during those 22 years when I lived here, Belarus have changed completely. And I just want to tell you certain things I know from the inside of the country, and maybe you will understand a little bit better what is happening now in Minsk, what is happening now in Belarus. Okay? So, historically, Belarus was either under Polish government or Russian government. If you look at the map of Belarus, you will see that geographically it's kind of a buffer zone between West and Russia. So all the wars, not only Second World War, not only First World War, but all other wars that were sort of going between Russia and Europe, Europe and Russia, were kind of going through Belarus. Okay, and it's said that every fourth person died during Second World War in Belarus. Uh, but I think there are also knowledge that during all the other wars, quite a lot of Belarusians were killed just because Belarus was that sort of buffer zone. Lots of Belarusian army soldiers, because we still have national service in Belarus and had it during the 80s, have been killed in Afghanistan. There are lots of, I remember zinc coffins coming from Afghanistan with our soldiers. I remember the generation that was worried about going to the army, as the chance to be killed in Afghanistan was really, really high. And probably during all those wars, Belarus kind of learned not to be very aggressive. So Belarusians naturally not very aggressive people because there just too many of them were killed, just too much suffered, and Belarus essentially is sort of a peaceful country. Soviet Union have started probably somewhere around 1930s, because before it was still quite difficult to collect all those 15 republics that were in the Soviet Union. One of those Soviet Union republics was Republic of Belarus, where I'm coming from. And when Perestroika happened in 1996, no, sorry, 86, kind of together with Chernobyl in the same year, Perestroika happened and Chernobyl happened. Belarus become one of the countries agreed to stay with Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Russia at a time, I think in around 91, 92, agreed to have that kind of one state that will be supporting each other economically and politically. Since then, Ukraine obviously moved out of that agreement, and Belarus and Russia are still in the agreement, and there are lots of Russian army places in Belarus, probably two quite important objects. Belarus atomic weapons are kind of with Russia and tied up to Russia. So politically, it was balancing since after Perestroika time. Belarus was balancing between Russia and the West. I think as it always was doing in the history. Anyway, that created some sort of unique place of Belarus, okay? What was unique after Lukashenko came to power? And I must admit, when Lukashenko came to power, He came to power in around 1995, 96, I think. He came to power, yes, 25 years ago, and he was kind of fresh, because after Soviet Union broke apart, and you need to understand, nobody really contributed to Soviet Union breaking apart. Soviet Union, I remember the time, Soviet Union have been breaking apart by itself. It was just falling. It was just unable to exist anymore, economically, politically. The propaganda machine stopped working. People have been tired of Soviet Union, okay? So when Soviet Union started falling apart, Belarus fall apart as well. What have followed the breaking of Soviet Union? The fall of all the structures like police, army, medicine, education, everything started creaking and falling apart, and country became the Wild West, when everybody were grabbing as much money as they could, stealing everything they possibly could. And we are benefiting from that in England because the majority of those people are now in England and contribute to English economy. So that's kind of not a bad situation, but it's not really good for Belarus, unfortunately. So when Lukashenko came to power, he sort of stopped that process. He stopped people from just robbing country of everything and running away abroad. He stopped nationalism because there were lots of leaders who were talking about Belarusian language. Russians should go away from Belarus. I am from a Russian-speaking community in Belarus, even though my relatives were Belarusian-speaking as well. So Belarus essentially was quite international country, but after Perestroika, the nationalism became an issue for a while. Lukashenko kind of, stopped that. Lukashenko stopped that. Lukashenko have restored the plants, the factories, to its most original Soviet Union glory. There are lots of economic objects in Belarus that are quite important, and they're functioning the way it was in Soviet Union. And I think ambition of Lukashenko when he came to power was to stop all this unregulated society and recreate Belarus of a golden age of Soviet Union as he remembered it from his childhood. Okay, he is originally a farmer. He is coming from that farming background, and he was a director of the kolkhoz. Kolkhoz was the collective farm. It's a bit like kibbutz in Israel. It is the same communist idea of people getting together, farming together, and kind of sharing the proceeds together. The idea was slightly changed by communists, and kolkhoz didn't really um, stood by its original principles. It became quite a difficult structure to work with and work within, and it didn't really meet the, how can I say, didn't stand um, the experience of time. With the time, it all fell apart. And then Lukashenko, when he came to power, started actively chasing everybody who are trying to make money. And if in Russia, Putin allowed classes to form, Lukashenko, as being a proper child of Soviet Union, didn't allow any classes to form. And what happened in Belarus? Belarus became a class-free society. Whilst in Russia, we can see the rise of middle class, the new class of oligarchs, the class of poor people. or working class. In Belarus, we can see no classes. But Lukashenko was really busy creating one class, his regime supporters. The former apparatus of KGB became his proper support ground, and he was heavily investing in everything that would and everybody who would support the regime. So police in Belarus and army in Belarus are strong. They are elite, and they are supporting Lukashenko. However, I must say that yes, Lukashenko did invest into the roads, into the buildings. Everything is repaired. Minsk, when you look at it, is quite a nice European-looking town. The banks are working. You can use your cards everywhere. The hotels are working. Everything is fine. And on the surface, it is nice. And if you've got some money in your pocket, you go to Belarus, you're fine there. Yeah, you feel good. You feel good. But when you live inside Belarus, situation is difficult because you live in that sort of Soviet Union. It's like former Soviet Union. It is modernized Soviet Union, but it is still that kind of structure. And over 20 years, Lukashenko have methodically killed, tortured, threatened, pushed out of the country all his political opponents. And he have created a generation of new Lukashenko Jugend, you know, uh, people who will kill for his for their Tsar, for their leader. And there are a lot of people who have been trained very well to support the tyranny, to support the regime of Lukashenko. What happened? Now people ask me, what happened? It was going on for 25 years. Why now? Why now? And all I can say is that during that 25 years, the new generation have been born and grow up. When I was leaving Belarus, I was leaving it because I thought my life will not be enough to change anything there. Because Lukashenko did have a lot of support. People were tired of Soviet Union, and then people were tired of their banditism that came after Soviet Union. People were tired of that unregulated life when they didn't know if they're going to be killed, robbed, raped, when they were coming out of the house, when there were no economy, when country was falling down, country was in a turmoil. People didn't want that. So they have said, all right, to all the Lukashenko ideas. However, that situation have changed. Over those 25 years in power, Lukashenko completely dismissed that he has people in the country. He thought that he is a Tsar of the country, and I believe he still believes that. So he have completely forgotten about the fact that he's got people in Belarus who may not support him at all. And yes, every time presidential election was kind of pronounced pro-Lukashenko, and every time it was 85%. But if in the beginning people kind of were sort of all right with that, because they still lived on that former Soviet Union lives, when everything was always one way how party tells it is and another way how it is really, and people lived in that dual reality. And I think any regime has that. You've got sort of politically correct behavior and the reality. And if you are talking about the reality, you are getting prosecuted or tortured in prison or killed. So people talk about each other hush hush, but they publicly saying something that government expects them to say. And it kind of worked for a while. It kind of worked. And yes, Lukashenko had a huge support, a bit like Fidel Castro, I guess, in the beginning. But new generation have grown up, and all those Lukashenko's Soviet Union principles, ideas, and mechanisms of regulation could not work anymore. They are just very, very archaic. It is, you can't always, use the plow. At some point, you need to start using machinery. So you can't balance in between. You can balance in between countries and political situations, but you can't balance between the times. You can't really go on that Soviet Union machine. It's like a time machine. You go to Belarus, you're kind of 20 years back. It is a little bit like you go to Isle of Man, right? And everybody say, oh my God, it's 20 years behind. Oh, gosh, it's different in England. But in Belarus, you go to Belarus from Russia and it's like, oh wow, this is still Soviet Union here. We didn't realize. Um, and a new world is coming. You see, new technology is coming, everything is coming. So new generation just can't get it. They can't get Lukashenko anymore. Whatever he says, and sometimes he does say some interesting things, everybody's tired of him. And I think the same way Soviet Union have fall apart, Belarus regime starts falling apart. Nobody is organizing it. Unfortunately, maybe it would have been more interesting to find out and talk to people who have organized it, but it is just people who cannot bear it anymore. They cannot live in a state in fear, because Lukashenko used that old good Soviet Union fear, imposing fear of people, threaten them with being thrown into the prison, tortured, killed. Um, they just can't. That's it. This is it. This is it. And I can see that nothing will stop them now, because people have been living in fear last 10 years. I think it become more and more apparent that people are living in fear, and they just can't do it anymore. They can't do it anymore. They go abroad, they come back home, they try to lead normal lives, and they can see that something is missing in their lives. Something is missing. They can't express their political opinions. They have to balance between that schizophrenia, what I can say on public and what I can say at home. I can't understand what's going on in the country, because whatever Lukashenko says, it's more or less a facade. And there is an opinion that country may be run by different mafia structures that are sort of within Lukashenko army of supporters, because Lukashenko did give those army executives, police executives, KGB executives good salaries. He does give them opportunities. They are elite of the country, and they are VIPs. And it is exactly the same as it was in Soviet Union. But I remember that when Soviet Union was breaking apart, it was due to the fact that even army leaders, even those Soviet Union VIPs, Communist Party executives, they got tired of Soviet Union. They have been really waiting for something good to happen because they couldn't live in that state when they have to say one thing but think something else. And that distortion of reality really contributed to Soviet Union falling apart. So this is my opinion about what is going on in Belarus, and my heart is with people. I know they're suffering, I know they're tortured, I know they're getting killed, I know that police and Lukashenko's regime will be actively against them. They will chase everybody who are protesting. They will try to threaten them. They will use all sorts of powers. And I'm sure we will know about it one way or another. The question was as well, let me just have a look. Why protests in Belarus are not going into Russia? Right. The tactical fault of Lukashenko on that presidential election was he didn't believe in the power of his own people, of people of Belarus. He have treated Belarusians as some sort of biological mass that will do whatever Lukashenko says. And his regime was very much supporting that idea. And I mean, the information he was receiving um, from police and army was that, yeah, we will just threaten them a little bit more. We will kill them a little bit more. We will torture them a little bit more, and they will shut up. But I think it went on for a little bit too long, and people just couldn't stand it, and especially young people can't. And young people are our future, and they will live in the country they are going to build now. So here we go. Would protests in Belarus move on to Moscow? I don't know, because if Putin have been allowing people to make money in Russia, and yes, Russia is very much in the mafia structure, of course. So is, I guess, all former Soviet Union republics. Belarus was in that sort of position when nobody were allowed to make money. So Belarusians didn't create classes. Belarusians have been in the situation when there were no classes. So it's a class of Lukashenko and his supporters and the rest of the nation. Very much it reminds me of the structure of Russian Empire and any empire really, when Tsar is at the top. When 1917 revolution happened, communists didn't know any better. They created the same structure, but with communist ideas. So they have picked up the old country structure, Russian Empire structure, and every communist top executive like Lenin, Stalin, Khrushchev, then Brezhnev, they all were on the top of that pyramid. Now Putin follows the same, Lukashenko follows the same structure, and that Tsar structure doesn't allow for, doesn't cater for change of power, because Lukashenko already following that standard and he's saying, oh, my son will be my successor. Putin is slightly more clever. He understands that. So he is sort of trying to rearrange Russia now in a way that when he goes, he understands he has to go. Cinderella has to go, you know, he has to go. And Lukashenko doesn't understand that he has to go. Putin knows he has to go. Lukashenko doesn't know that he has to go. Yes, that pyramid structure of Tsar on top um, doesn't have that Tsar goes away and new Tsar gets elected idea. it has the idea that Tsar is going to die, and this is how Tsar will be replaced by another Tsar. And this is the same mafia structure as, I don't know, the head of mafia usually gets killed, and Lukashenko pretty much sees himself as a godfather of Belarus. And therefore, he says now that you need to kill me to let me go. I mean, you either kill me or I'm staying in power. There are no other way. And of course, Lukashenko would like to have a little war. Then he can put the army machinery in place and he can recreate that proper Soviet Union regime, proper tanks on the streets, proper killing of his own people, and proper way of I'm staying in power, doesn't matter what idea. What will happen, I don't know. Right now, people do protest and do protest peacefully. Hopefully, they will not protest in any other way. Hopefully, those peaceful protests will bring a lot of attention from us, from the Western world, from Belarusians who are abroad, like me, Belarusians who are in all sorts of different countries, who will support their country. Hopefully, people will be sending money to those who are now protesting and whose salaries will be cut. And there is no problem for Lukashenko to let people starve, to let people die, because he doesn't see value in people. He sees value in his own power. Would Russia support Lukashenko? Well, Russia would obviously support some way of stabilizing the situation because nobody wants that wave to go into Russia. But we saw Ukrainian revolution, and Ukrainian situation didn't really sort of go out of Ukraine, kind of stayed in Ukraine. Belarus has its time now just because Belarusians can't take it anymore. That's it. That's it. So what is happening now? People say, what is happening now? Why Lukashenko is trying to sort of balance and he's trying to find a way, first of all, how to re-agree with all the mafia structure that he's got, how to, because he is the Tsar of the country, so he is trying to work out who in his surroundings are going to support him further, who is not, and I must admit that there are lots of negotiations probably going on because people from factory telling that some people come into their factories whom they never saw before, and it could be investors, it could be buyers. I don't know what they're going to do. The question is where Lukashenko is going to go, because with the tyranny, the tyrant goes to prison or gets killed. I think if we want Lukashenko to leave his post peacefully, we need to create a situation when he will go somewhere, and it will create a new practice when tyrant is going and tyrant has place to go, and it's not a prison. I personally think Lukashenko probably should go to a psychiatric hospital for a bit because I think he is mad and I think he's got lots of disorders, and psychologically he is unstable. But I'm not a psychiatrist to decide, and I think psychiatrists may give him some diagnosis. And as a mentally unstable person and person who's got mental issues, he should probably live somewhere peacefully, and there is no way to prosecute him because he is unable to be responsible. He is not psychologically all there. So this is all ahead of us. This is all ahead of us. Of course, Lukashenko can can be holding on for dear life for much longer. Right. Opposition. About opposition. Very interesting question about Belarus opposition. Opposition of Lukashenko that was formed, that obviously exists. Lots of opposition leaders were killed. They're missing. They have gone out of the country. Lots of opposition leaders have been put into a situation when they have to stop talking because their family is threatened. So we don't know much about opposition. I assume there are people who think about Belarus, Belarusian economy, what will happen after Lukashenko goes, because all the money of the republic is now with Lukashenko, effectively. Where all those money will go, because after Soviet Union broke apart, nobody ever found out where communists' money went. I think they all went to Nicebridge, which is not a bad thing for England. Don't know where Lukashenko will go with all the money, but economically, Lukashenko have made sure that all the businesses of the country, all the big projects, all the factories are kind of tied up to himself. So we don't know. It's state-regulated economy, it is state economy, but actually it is Lukashenko's economy. He is a Tsar and everything is going to his pockets. Yes, he is reinvesting into the community. Yes, he is reinvesting into the country. Yes, he is giving money to schools, to kindergartens, to hospitals. Yes, he is refinancing. Yes, he does build lots of homes for people. He did quite a lot of good things, I must admit. But at the same time, he imposed lots of fear on people, and it is unacceptable. I think we can live peacefully in this world. We should be able to do that. So that's what I want to say, and my heart goes to people of Belarus, and hopefully, guys, we will be free again, and Belarus will live better, better lives. So stay strong, and hopefully the world will not leave you unattended, and you will have support from other leaders, from other countries, and Belarus will be a normal, free country at some point. Love you all, guys. It's hard.